First up, though, let's talk about the effect of all the latest COVID restrictions and worries about Omicron on travel. All UK arrivals should be forced to quarantine for 5 days and take a pre-departure PCR test, even if they are vaccinated. That's what the SAGE advisors have told the government. As we're threatened with more restrictions on flying to the States, and the Heathrow Airport has reopened Terminal 4 to process those red list arrivals from those 10 African nations on the red list. Let's talk to Julia Bue-Said, who's the Chief Executive of Advantage Travel Partnership, and joins us now. Good morning to you, Julia.
Morning, Julia.
It just gets harder and harder to travel, doesn't it? On the face of it, these travel restrictions are not too onerous. All they are is, look, you can't travel in from 10 countries in Africa, which they believe to be at highest at risk of having this Omicron variant, and you have to have hotel quarantine for 2 weeks. Absolute nightmare for people trying to have family reunions, holiday trips cancelled. But let's face it, not most of the people flying or travelling around this time of the year in and out of this country. The PCR test and the requirement to self-isolate until you get that negative result, that has caused an awful lot of people to cancel trips. That and the prospect of the threat that with Omicron spreading, if it is so transmissible, of any other country they're flying to, going on that red list at short notice, people not being able to get back or facing 2 weeks in quarantine. This has been a disaster for the travel industry.
Absolutely right. It's confidence, Julia, and whenever you have these changes that are in place that are implemented at such last minute, and we understand why. Clearly, public health has to come first. It creates a knock-on impact right across our sector in terms of confidence. So people worried about being stuck abroad, what will they do? The PCR test, and as you say, it's actually not so much the cost, although the cost has reduced. Is the fact that you now have to isolate regardless of your vaccination status until you get those test results. And you have to rely on the private sector, which is at the best of times, the service is not being great. So
Yeah.
it does create a real issue for travellers.
I mean, it really does. And I'm just looking at, we're hoping to go away. You've got the worry of like, do I risk not getting my negative PCR test before I go away? Everyone's terrified about not, going to a party and getting a positive test, or coming into contact with someone and having to self-isolate and not being able to go to their Christmas lunch with their family, having missed it last year. People are really anxious, flying back into the country. Everyone I know, people was trying. You come back end of the Christmas holidays, you get back in time, and then you go back to work. Now I'm in a situation where I won't be able to get my PCR test result back in time because I would already have supposed to have been on air by the time it would come back, even if I paid for the most expensive one. The thing is, these have massive knock-on effects, and any uncertainty puts people off, doesn't it? It's not even you can't fly to that country, full stop. It's you might not be able to fly to that country, or you might not be able to get back from that country without extra problems, extra cost, time off work, etc. And people just go, if in doubt, I'll cancel.
Yeah, it's the spook factor that changes behaviour, and that's what we're seeing time and time again with the messaging, the rhetoric behaviour, the comments that are coming through. And actually, if you think about it now, travel has remained under pretty severe restrictions right the way through. We've all had to wear masks. We all have to test, coming back. And actually, let's not forget, if you have been fully vaccinated right the way from the 6th of October, when they changed the rules, anybody that is not vaccinated has to undergo at least 3 tests before departure and on arrival. So, this view that we are travelling without restrictions is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Severe restrictions already in place.
And far fewer people travelling. We never even got up, to more than 50%, and that was just, half term. Nothing like that. It was at 20%, even below that in the summer. So again, people put off. They've worried what's going to change. They'd had their fingers burnt before. We've even got people's Christmas trips. I know people like my lovely colleague Mike Graham off to see family in the United States. He hasn't been able to see for 2 years. There's now talk in America of them requiring 5 days quarantine for anyone coming from the UK. Switzerland, we're on the red list. People planning to go on ski trips flying into Geneva won't even be allowed into the country. The knock-on effects. France, vaccine passports to get onto a ski lift. Well, you have to be double jabbed. Well, many children in the UK, most children haven't been jabbed at all. Many can't be double jabbed in time. They children like my daughter, she hasn't been jabbed at all, but she's also had COVID. Not supposed to be getting the jab straight after having COVID. We are entering a minefield, and it is no surprise that people just say, I just won't bother anymore.
Absolutely, it's chaotic. I mean, just hearing all those comments there, it's a chaotic process, and I just want to make the point that anytime we think about travel, let's not forget we are talking about a million jobs.
Yeah.
We are talking about the third largest economic sector that has continued with restrictions. Lots of small businesses that are just unable to trade through to recovery. So the knock-on impacts are colossal. It's not about holidays and travel. It's about the knock-on
Yeah.
impact to people's livelihoods, which is
Yeah.
significant.
And again, it's the same with the hospitality being hit. Casual remarks by Minister, and this idea that, oh well, it's not too onerous, but actually it does have a massive impact on specific industries in terms of the confidence, doesn't it? Do you foresee a time, if we're talking about boosters being rolled out till 2023? I mean, do you, and the fact that at any point you could just suddenly, like that, have a country on a red list? Do you foresee a time in any point in the next year where things will get back to normal? People just go, yeah, I can book with confidence, I'm fine.
I think we've got to a point that people realise it's probably not normal. However, I've had enough. I need to go and see friends and
Yeah,
family. A holidays are important for me. I'm going. I'm flying out on Monday. I'm going to the US. I'm going.
fabulous.
Regardless. So
Yeah,
I think we are at that point where travel is still possible. There are a few bumps in the road.
yeah.
Careful who you book with, how you book, but you can still travel.
Absolutely. No, I'm with you. I will not let them defeat me. But then you have to be lucky enough to be in a position where you're not going to be completely bankrupt by all the extra PCR tests and all the things you didn't account for. But yeah, I just refuse to be defeated on this. This idea that travel is somehow an optional extra to life as opposed to something that people have a human right to. I'm sorry, it is a human right. Ability to go in and out of your country is only been limited by totalitarian states in the past. And the World Health Organization argues against these limitations, for goodness sake. It really is crazy. Julia Bue-Said, thank you so much for joining us, Chief Executive, Advantage Travel Partnership.